Okay, hi everyone. I just want to check that everyone can hear me. So if you can hear me and see us, if you just put a quick yes in the chat, just so I can know. Okay, hi everyone. I just want to check that everyone. If you can hear me and see us, if you just put a quick yes in the chat, just so I can know. Okay, hi everyone. I just want to check that everyone can hear me. Aria, I think there's some echo on your end. If you could just mute for 1 second. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly introduce our next speaker here. Thank you so much for joining us. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker for today, Aria Chang. Aria is a software engineer on the data engineering team at MediaMath, where she designs large-scale machine learning data pipelines. She has been named one of the top 50 most inspirational MLH hackers for her heavy hackathon participation and numerous hackathon awards. On top of all that, she has also been involved in many notable projects and research, ranging from heart disease classification to fixing contingencies within the power grid. She will be sharing with us how to dig your heels in tech and find your place through hackathons, research, and applications. And just as a reminder, there will be time for a quick Q&A after her presentation where you can submit any questions you have to the Hop-in Stage chat room. And with that, I will let you take it away, Aria.
So sorry about the technical difficulties. All right, so let's get it started. Hope everyone's ready for some story time. There'll be a little change of pace from the previous talk. Very insightful. Cool. All right. Thank you for letting me know in the chat. So I had a very patchy road to success. I grew up with my grandparents, and the most they talked to me about was Tai Chi. Fun fact, I actually did a round of Tai Chi just now before the talk to calm my nerves, and it did wonders. And then they would tell me how to get up early to exercise and eat healthy and fix household items and how to be a decent human being. I loved them, but all I knew about computers was how to find the Wi-Fi button on the computer and click on it. I was in no way tech savvy. I didn't know that binary system was a thing. And the first time I encountered programming was when I saw a MATLAB program on an acquaintance computer, and I was in high school. I was like, what is this piece of junk? Is it even human readable? And the idea of a programming language was just purely alien to me. So I had a very hard time taking intro programming language classes, failed a couple as well. My confidence was nowhere to be found, and seeing how everyone around me just knew right away the output of a program or what the heck a for loop even does, raising their hands up so high in class or just yelling out the answer. I was like, what are you doing in an intro CS class if you already know everything? That's not the worst. Even the professors assumed that everybody already had language skills without even teaching the most basic, like what was an input, what's a function, and how variable assignment worked, which were things that fundamentally baffled me the most. But the problem was that I didn't know anything about this world, that I didn't even know the right questions to ask to make me less confused. I was just completely lost. Then I waited for some quarters just for an easier professor to take another class. And finally, an easier professor came along, so I took it. I did okay in that class, but the next required lower division class, there was no one else but this same super strict professor again. So I had nowhere to run. I started taking this class. I wasn't doing too bad initially, but halfway through, my project mate just started relying on me for everything, and I felt so stressed out. Then finally, I just couldn't do it anymore. I stopped going to classes, and I ended up even skipping. I knew I was a quitter all along. I had been one of many things in my life, quitting piano after half a year as a kid, quitting tennis after day one. I had many first swimming lessons. You get the drift. It didn't surprise myself when I quit this time, but it still felt really bad. I tried to convince myself that I wasn't quitting without leaving an escape route for me. I could take it again. So when I do, and the stuff I learned in the first half wouldn't have been that new. So I went back to retake the next quarter, and it wasn't too bad. I was relearning the same concepts, and if anything, it gave me a boost, like those kids who started programming in middle school had. And I aced that class for the first time. But still, it didn't feel too great since I knew I only aced it because I repeated. At that point, I had taken most of the required lower division classes, and I didn't know anything about the upper division classes, how difficult they might be. I didn't know to read the class or the professor reviews or check the course websites to see past assignments. So when a friend asked me to take this upper division class because he had nobody else to do the projects with in the class, I just didn't have the heart to say no. It turned out to be this class that usually others would typically take as the very last class in college. So we ended up partnering on projects, and I was struggling a lot. He through half the quarter. I felt embarrassed. So with my second project mate, I was so determined to prove that I wasn't a leech. It just so happened that my project mate was busy with other courses at the time, so I had to put in the most work. I stayed up at night. I learned to read through the language documentations and ask the right questions this time to the TAs and other students, and I carried him. I got to be a carrier instead of the carried. Together, we finished all the projects, and I didn't fail, but due largely in part to the very generous curve. So I thought, hey, probably I don't suck that much. At the same time, my friend also recommended that I give machine learning a shot. I never heard of it, but just thought it sounded really cool since how it's mostly math. I was like, that's perfect. I don't have the upper hand in programming, but math, everybody started in elementary school. Also, I developed passion for it in middle school. So for sure, others who started coding in middle school had nothing on me. Leveling the playing field, you know. So I started the class, but the problem was that I didn't know how Python worked. It was the language required to complete all the homework and group projects, but very luckily I found a study group, and a friend taught me all the basics of Python. And then the homework assignments actually involved a lot of math proofs and probability, not the usual object-oriented programming stuff. I loved it, finally, and felt like now it's speaking my language. So the next step for me was to look for a research intern. Excited to find how I could apply what I learned into a research project. I went crazy looking for a research position. I felt a little more confident though, especially since taking ML class was considered a cool thing, and I couldn't wait to use what I learned. I heard from a friend in the ML class about doing some natural language projects, and I emailed the professor right away. He was really open to students' help, and the bar wasn't too high to get in on the research. So I started my first ML research. Then after that initial project, I went back to research on another one with him the next quarter. I even took initiative to be that took confidence me, I'll do it. I found that it was especially exhilarating when I had a bunch of alphas in the group trying to assert their dominance. I just felt even more motivated to show them that no matter how good you are, there's always someone out there better than you. Even though that someone might not be me, but that gave me the power, the motivation to try my best to compete with them. I was also taking an AI class at the time and worked on a quarter-long project with a group of 4 to create StarCraft AI back before when DeepMind published AlphaStar that rendered all other StarCraft research work useless. But we used Q-learning taught to us in class and made a bot which achieved pretty good results at the time. Then when applying for this Smart Grid Research summer internship, when the AI research manager called me, he sounded skeptical initially, thinking how much could an undergrad kid know about ML research? Then I told him about the StarCraft AI research my team did, and he got intrigued all of a sudden. he told me that he wants someone to implement something just like that for a smart grid project, and that there are a lot of similarities between real-time strategy games and the smart grid. While I knew nothing about smart grid at the time, well, of course I was like, yeah, yes, that sounds about right. Nevertheless, I got a verbal offer at the end of that phone call, and that summer turned out to be quite life-changing. Aside from the free lunch and watermelon every day, I spearheaded a research project developing an AI agent using DeepQ networks to fix contingencies in the power system, along with all the brainstorming sessions with my manager. I didn't know anything about the power grid. I still have a vague understanding of what the buses running through the power grid actually do, but what I learned was that you don't need to be an expert in the specific domain, or have expert knowledge to be able to apply machine learning techniques to the system. My bot eventually was able to fix contingencies in a 14-bus power system at near 100% accuracy. I got to present the work from the 3 long summer months at the end before the CEO and all the other researchers, and was left feeling like it was my baby and I didn't want to leave it alone after summer ended. This was the first time I felt ownership and possessive of my CS project. And boy, was I right. Our paper went on to be published on IEEE and won Best IEEE Conference Award. And the team also made some optimizations based on my initial prototype version. They went on entering the bot in international conferences and winning more awards here and there. And we even applied for a patent for my initial work as well. These achievements didn't happen overnight, but rather over a span of 2 years. But every time I heard wind of another achievement, my confidence grew a bit more. So here goes the only technical portion of my talk. This is a process flow diagram of the GridMine project. To simulate the actual power grid, I used a power flow solver software, which takes in a set of randomly generated readings of the power grid to calculate whether there's a violation in the system. Then the reinforcement learning agent will perform an action by changing the settings, a number of settings in the power grid, and then it will determine if there's a violation. Evaluate reward based on a user-defined reward function and append it to the neural network's memory. And the current simulation episode if there's no violation or the power grid is past the point of no return, meaning if it diverges. Else, we calculate rewards but loop it back to the agent to take further actions to attempt to repair the damage. From last summer's experience, I found that whenever I was recognized for my work, I felt validated. So coming back to school, I didn't know what awaited me was yet another pivotal moment. I went to my first hackathon. I found this group of first and second year college students from UC Berkeley on Slack, and we stayed up all night to create this learning tracking application using some ML speech-to-text API. I remember the midnight boba snack and awake chocolates, if anyone can relate, which added so much sweetness to the excitement of a first-time hacker. It was the most crowded space, and we sat on the 4th floor looking down at all the other young students like us hacking at their station. It was a sight I had never seen but will never forget. I remember my teammates and I taking turns to nap on the hard cold chair, and I took a short half-hour nap around 6 a.m., the only shut-eye I had in the past 2-3 days, waking up to find my teammates still going at it. Then came the pivotal moment in my tech journey, when at the closing ceremony, when my team's name was announced on the stage for the first time, and then the second time for a separate award. I was no longer just another CS student. I became an engineer capable of creating work good enough to be recognized and commended. Even though it probably seems rather insignificant now, that feeling of joy, like someone had truly seen my talent for ideas I brainstormed and for an application I stayed up all night to create, it was the best feeling in the world. I became a hackathon addict after that. Took long road trips to go to other hackathons in that fall. And fate was on my side this time, knowing how many times I had cried myself to sleep because I couldn't accomplish what others. I ended up winning some hackathons. Ever since that first one at UC Berkeley, my confidence was being pieced back together little by little, and I was also sadly getting a big head. So time came for my graduation and job finding season. I had every intention to look for something similar to my previous research internships in the tech workforce. Little did I know that my overconfidence was I was about to learn another invaluable lesson about what recruiters expect their potential hire to possess when recruiting for a machine learning research engineer. I was automatically rejected by over 500 jobs for only possessing a bachelor's degree and failing the resume keyword test. I chose to ignore the harder requirements or the ones labeled as must-haves on the list of master's degree and above, so I just strictly PhD only. First, through the resume around and talk experience and achievements and a solid understanding of convolutional neural networks, but still got rejected. I got up feeling motivated in the morning until I opened up my inbox and saw 10 to 20 rejection emails from the resume rounds or first or second rounds. I knew that my limited degree was standing in my way. But my luck was about to turn when I got a call scheduled with my current job's manager. He knew about my machine learning experience and knew that I wanted to do something machine learning related. It was what he had asked me next that made me think of something I had never thought of before. He asked me if I'd really be interested in the job because it wasn't going to be building ML models every day, but was more about maintaining large-scale machine learning pipelines and developing software features touching all areas of the machine learning lifecycle. I was utterly dumbfounded. I hadn't realized that machine learning research is so much other than ML production. Although I had all my ML research and internship experience, most of my previous work was in the research stage without taking it to production or actually making a difference in the world. Even during my many hackathon projects, I had always only asked to take up on the machine learning part of the projects, be it using some ML API or implementing research work. I never actually built out the entire production, the entire application. So I felt intimidated having to work with large-scale and production-level ML pipelines. But I knew that what the job was offering me was essential skills that I didn't have, since it touches all areas of the ML production cycle. So I became very excited, and I couldn't wait to discover this area entirely hidden from me before. So I happily took the offer as a software engineer on the data engineering team. All throughout my first year of job, I learned that it wasn't enough to only know how to use SQL, and it wasn't enough to only know how to process 1 gigabyte of data, then train an AI model, then achieve 98% accuracy in a simulated environment. Simply knowing how to write the ML part of a project is actually only less than 20% of the work, and the rest is building out databases from scratch using a programming language, using Kubernetes and cloud technologies to automate running the entire process, and to do the ETL on the data, and building out APIs with object-oriented programming to deliver prediction outcomes to other services, running A/B testing and such. And this can only be done with solid software engineering practice. It's been a year since I said yes to the offer, and the job didn't let me down. It was everything I wanted and more. I didn't think I could use my background in my job. They married into each other to me. I want to tell those who are eager to jump right into machine learning research to not forget to also hone your software engineering skills in the meantime, because having both research and application skills will not only make you just a data scientist or just a software engineer. Instead, it'll make you an owner of a product that you get to create all by yourself and call your own. Otherwise, it'll be a lot of relying on others to finish your work and to share the fruit of your labor. So couple takeaways from my story. I'd like for you to know that it's never too old to start. It's never, you don't have to envy those who started coding before you have even learned your algebra. Successors can surpass old-timers. Secondly is you need to try even if it feels impossible. Case in point, how it came from not knowing a for loop and thinking I'd never learn anything to being able to create impactful applications. And the most importantly, eat failure like cake. Failing this time doesn't mean you will fail the next time. And the next time you fail doesn't mean you will also fail the time after that. Time just works differently for everyone. Last but not least, overcome the imposter syndrome. This one is pretty easy to think through. You just gotta remember that nobody was born to know any sophisticated skills like eating with utensils or understand what a for loop does. Only if you start trying, then will it be anyone's game. Thank you all. That concludes the speech portion of my talk. Thanks for listening to being here today. Please add me on LinkedIn if I'm unable to answer your questions in the limited time left, or if you just want to connect and talk about things. Now, where are those questions? I believe the moderator is
okay, so thank you so much. Hello? That's wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for such an inspiring presentation. And now we do have about 10 minutes left. So if anyone has questions, ask it in the chat.
I'm ready.
Seeing a lot of thank yous. Yeah, that was so inspiring. I got goosebumps listening to you, Aria.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me. Was there any question throughout the talk?
Yeah. So we do have one question from a student, and that is, what kind of advice do you have to give to us students who are kind of just emerging in our careers?
Okay, that's a very good question. A very big topic, a lot of things to cover. Not sure about your background, but if you're still a student in school, I would definitely recommend take all kinds of required and not required classes just to expand your horizon, because it's really true that you don't know what you don't know. And you might surprise yourself by discovering something amazing that you didn't know existed like I did. And then if you're on the way to look for a full-time position, definitely have a focus. If you're more interested on the software side, be very solid with data structure and algorithm. And pay close attention in class and ask a lot of questions. And also be very solid in a chosen language of your interest, and be very solid in that one programming language. And then some nice stuff. Aside from that, do a lot of side projects, not just the ones from school, but go to hackathons if you're interested. There are a lot of those. Major League Hacking, I mostly went to those. Those are amazing and really life-changing for me, gave me so much confidence. I can't, yeah, it's incredible how they have so many awards, and they give anyone's project if they see that you have put in a lot of work, and if it's a novel idea, then you just get that confidence from winning the awards. But it might not be the same for everyone. This was how I need other people's validation. But yeah.
Very true. And then we have another question. So what do you think are some of the best ways to combat imposter syndrome as interns? Because I know a lot of us definitely lack confidence.
I'll tell you a secret. All the senior engineers on my team, I looked them up on LinkedIn, and you see how they know everything. They're so knowledgeable about their craft, but I also see that they came from, they took the same steps we did. Some of them would have had internship in the beginning, and only then they would move on to professional full-time jobs as software engineer or whatever. Some people just, if they are a data scientist, they would be going from a data analyst in the beginning, so taking on less responsibilities. So yeah, if it's something that'll make you feel better, go look up your teammates' past experience, then you'll find out that Rome wasn't built in a day, and they just, a lot of people, they have to take a long road to get to where they are. So just don't compare yourself to others.
Very true. Yeah, we all start somewhere. Okay, and then we also have a question about how you go about emailing professors about research opportunities, because it does seem like a really daunting task for first years or just anyone new who hasn't done any research before.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I had a very hard time looking for research positions, given that I didn't have the best GPA, and I know a lot of professors value that. So a trick would be to the CS department to research I had was with the communications department professor, and all he wanted was someone who has some experience with the programming language and the specific machine learning experience, which the classes I took. So the bar would be lower, but that's one way you could get around competing with other intimidating students with all A's and a lot of internship experience.
Mm-hmm. And another question about hackathons. So I think a lot of us feel that maybe we're unprepared. So do you have any advice about like what would you recommend to do to prepare for hackathons? Yeah, and just for anyone who feels that their knowledge may be too limited to participate.
Okay, that's a very good question. I feel that way because when I talked about the UC Berkeley, my first hackathon, was actually the first hackathon I actually participated and put in the work. I went to probably 2 or 4 hackathons before that, but I felt so intimidated, I quit halfway through again. If you feel intimidated, and even if you feel the same way I do, and just leave halfway through feeling like everyone else is better than you, but it's okay. You just keep going back, because this time you would have taken more classes, your knowledge would have been accumulated more, and then when you keep going back every single time, you'll feel a little more confident, even if you don't actually create something. But just by putting yourself in that environment, it'll help you a lot. It makes you feel like you belong there. But and it would be to look for people who are also beginners if you really feel intimidated, so that you and your friends could learn something together instead of feeling like other people on your team are doing the work.
Okay, and I think we have time for just one last question. So a few people were wondering about what your thoughts are on obtaining your professional engineering designation when you're in the computer and software engineering field.
So that's about long-term career goal-wise. Can I phrase it like that? Okay. I feel like there will definitely be a lot of changes in where you see yourself in the future. It'll happen with the more experience you have, internships you take, the failures you make, the mistakes you make in your life. But just the more experience you have, it'll just give you new perspectives. For me, the first CS internship I had, it was for a nonprofit organization building their front-end website. I didn't know anything about the data structure and stuff at the time, so this was perfect for me to just have that exposure. I was the only technical person on the team, so I was taking all the responsibilities, even though I myself didn't feel like I was qualified enough. But from that experience, I realized that I never wanted to be a front-end engineer. So it's okay to take on different challenges because you might be able to eliminate the ones you don't want to pursue for the rest of your career.
Mm-hmm. Very good advice. So thank you so much for answering our questions, and thank you so much to everyone for submitting great questions. Unfortunately, this is all the time that we have for this session, but if anyone still has additional questions, the VIP attendees do have access to our Discord server, where Aria has a channel in there where she can answer any questions that you submit on that Discord server channel. And so thank you again, Aria, for taking the time to share your amazing experiences and your journey with us. I believe the next event in our conference schedule is a workshop that's being held in the session tab on Hopin, and that just appears right below the stage tab on the left side of your Hopin page. So thank you again to everyone, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference. Thank you.